Assalamualaikum. This I will start presentation on gas metal arc welding or GMAW. Introduction. GMAW is also known by other name. It is metal inert gas (MIG). Solid wire of electrode is used continuously to travel through a welding gun while accompanied by a shielding gas that will protect it from being contaminated during welding process. Carbon dioxide are less expensive when compared to other gas that makes it more popular choice among welders. When using MIG welding to weld an aluminium, pure argon is more widely used as a shielding gas, as it is often used by gas-to-stain arc welding (GTAW). For the power supply, GMAW normally using DC power source, but AC as well constant current system can also be used for GMAW welding machine. Using positive polarity is highly recommended when using GMAW welding because of 2/3 of the current is generated. For the wire used in the welding, solid wire electrode are also known as metal core electrode or known as GMAW electrode. Metal core wire are with metallic constitution. The core has similar constitution to the solid GMAW in the performance characteristic. The last wire is gas-shield FCAW wire. FCAW electrode normally used for out-of-position and in-of-position welding. The bullet electrode in FCAW wire contain flux agent and deoxidizer to enhance material properties of the weld deposit and additional protection from the atmosphere. The chemistry of the wire and the type of shielding is important to determine the strength and mechanical property of the welding deposit. This is the microstructure of base material and weld microstructure. WZ is representing weld zone. HZ is representing heat affected zone, and BM is represent of base metal zone. This is also another image of the microstructure of the welding. On the A figures, this is the figure of MIG base material, and B figures is weld material, and C figure is heat affected zone. For the tensile strength of weld sample, from the study we can see that the same electrode with different current produce a different tensile strength. For welding current that is lower produce a higher tensile strength. While on hardness of the weld sample, by using weaker hardness test, the same electrode but using a different welding current also produce a different hardness. Electrode that using a lower welding current produce a higher hardness. For welding, there is important parameter that need to be taken care for a good strength. Welding current. First is welding current. Welding current is defined as electricity that jump across the arc gap between the end of the electrode and metal being welded. As wire speed increase, the welding current also increase. Wire electrode extension refers to distance between the rest point of electric contact between the end of the wire electrode and the end of contact tip. As the tip toward distance increase, welding current to melt the wire and increase as the amount of voltage heating increase. Third is welding voltage. Its main function is to control the arc length, which is the distance between the molten weld pool and the wire filler method at the point of welding within the arc. The value of voltage increase, wide to the deep ratio will also increase, and weld bed will flatten out. The widening of the weld bed will increase as the voltage of the welding increase. And lastly, the arc travel speed. First is travel speed will decrease as material thickness increase. Second, arc travel speed increase as welding current increase for a given material thickness and design. And lastly, it's possible to attain higher welding speed using forehand welding method. Welding procedure and testing, there are three procedures. The first one is preliminary purpose welding procedure specification (WPS). It will act as guide for welder that will weld PQR test coupon and based on document to get approval from a client. It will allow client a chance to view the welder work such as how test is being carried out to ensure the client happiness. Welding procedure specification (WPS) is important as guide to the welder that contain production standard and application and requirement. WPS instruction for welder for welding process that include log details such as base metal grade, carbon speed, type of electrode, and so on. And lastly, procedure qualification record PQR. PQR is the record for the test. WPS can only be made with PQR. It records the actual value during test piece is weld and act as proof for the welding process. The value for this PQR will be used to generate the essential variable and relevant code of the WPS to ensure it meets our requirement. For relevant code and quality management, welding code is important as a guide as they govern the welding activity to ensure the applicable welding in reliability, safety, and quality. Welding code and specification are normally included into contract when welding fabrication is produced and act as guideline acceptance criteria and expectation method for the weld. There are two mostly common used weld in the world. First is American Welding Society (AWS) and American Society of Mechanical Engineering (ASME). To ensure the welding quality is maintained, three different records is used to verify. The first one, procedure qualification record (PQR), welding procedure specification (WPS), and welder performance qualification (WPQ). Next is the inspection, defect, and failure analysis. Normally, the first step for inspection is using visual inspection. Visual inspection carries the advantage to be the easiest to perform and more cheap to conduct. When complicated and lack of proper tool, cause the technique often to be underestimated. If carried out properly, it can maintain an effective, acceptable quality welding and prevent welding problems. Next is during pre-welding inspection. This kind of inspection is carried out by inspect the drawing up of the welding joint and perimeter of the welding machine that are difficult to confirm during or after welding. This area inspection purpose is to control the defect of the welding. And next is inspection during welding. This inspection carried out in the course of the welding operation is mostly concerned with requirement of welding procedure specification (WPS). This inspection includes the items such as interpass temperature, cleaning method, welding surface speed, welding temperature, setting gas, and welding sequence. And lastly is post-welding inspection. This inspection is conducted to verify the integrity of complete weld. There are all kinds of non-destructive testing and DT methods available for post-welding inspection, but it's normal to conduct visual inspection before welds are subjected to NDT. From the conclusion of the project, we conclude that MIG welding is one of the best welding methods to weld a metal. The result of welding is highly depending on the technique of the welder and the ability of welder to set a proper parameter before the welding process. The ability to choose the correct wire type, gas type, wire type, and many other small details is important to ensure efficiency welding process. It's also important to follow the welding code to ensure the applicability of the welding weldment is reliability, safety, and quality is maintained. For the question for this presentation, the first question is why I prefer MIG welding is because it's good for fabrication, where the method is clean, unpainted, and produce a beautiful, liquid-looking, splatter-free weld. MIG welding can also be used on all thickness of steel, on aluminium, nickel, and even on stainless steel. For the limitation of the MIG welding, it's more complex and costly, while also sacrificing portability. In addition, shielding gas, electrode, and replacement tip and nozzle for MIG welding can add up a lot of cost. There is some material that can't or hard to be welded by the MIG welding, such as aluminium, carbon steel, stainless steel, aluminum and copper, and titanium and steel. Nothing can be done to alter their metallurgical properties. For inspection, the welding that we carry out when the welding is failed is to check the welding can the code standard, check size with gauge and print, check finish and contour, check for crack against standard, looking for overlap, check undercut, determine expected acceptable level. Next is the case for any study for the MIG welding. There is two cases that I have two examples here. The first one is experimental study of effect of MIG welding parameter on the weld heat shape characteristic. And the second is cybernetic technology robotic welding solution for aluminum construction panel. To manage the quality of the welding monitor methods are used to ensure the quality and correctness of the weld and process of the welding. The term of generally applied to automatic monitoring the quality purpose and secondary for process control purpose such as vision-based guidance.